Now we do industrial, factories, and we have quite a few different properties. We own about 1,300 doors in 9 states now.
Welcome to The Defense Never Rests with Morgan and Akins, your monthly dose of uncommon sense about all things legal and some that are not.
Well, hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of The Defense Never Rests. I am your host, Trisha Baxter, and co-hosting with me again, Talar Herculean Corsi. Hey, Talar, how are you?
I'm good. How are you, Trish? Happy Election Day.
Happy Election Day. As we are filming this, we don't know, obviously, the results of the election. It's like 2:30 Eastern Standard Time, so who knows what's going to happen. By the time this airs, maybe we'll know, maybe we don't. Who knows? But I love the outfit. You showed up. You have your pearls on. Talk about that. What do you have going on here?
Yes. So today I am very well branded. Everything that I have on is meaningful. This long white shirt I'm wearing is to keep me warm. That is the meaning. The Vista logo shirt is where I work, Vista Ford Lincoln in Oxnard and Woodland Hills, California. My pearls, my husband got these for me as an anniversary gift, and I'm wearing them because today's election day, and we're supposed to be wearing pearls in honor of Kamala Harris for her sorority. And then I also have pearl earrings, if you can see those. I do have RBG earrings as well, but it just didn't go that well with the pearls, so I wore those yesterday.
I love it. Well, you look
And
awesome.
Well, thanks, Trish. So who are you wearing today?
I didn't show up prepared at all.
Isn't that what they say on the red carpet? Who are you wearing?
The only thing I'm prepared to do is sit down with my bottle of wine tonight and see if I can stay up as long as possible to see if there's a result. But I will likely be in bed by 10 o'clock. My body clock does not stay up late. So
yeah, you and me both.
Well, so today we're talking about real estate. I have been investing in real estate for 3 years, and I think it's such a great side hustle for people that have a professional job because you can really do it so passively. It doesn't take a lot of time if you don't want to. I love it. Real estate is like my passion project. I've always wanted to do a real estate episode. We talked a little bit about real estate before we started because you're trying to convince me to come out your way and invest, and I'm not against it. So
yes. I mean, I'm going to do whatever it takes to get you out here, Trish. Yeah, it's going to happen.
Right? You want me to
Park City, Utah. Absolutely. It's the place to be. And you will be able to write off your travel to come visit me. And that way you will have no excuse not to come out here. It is really beautiful. Seriously, all 4 seasons. Fall and spring are probably my two favorite. They really are. It's just phenomenal.
Here's my thought on investing out like a mountain home community. Can I get on one airplane to get there, or do I need to get on two?
It depends, but you know what? After we finish here today talking to Monique, I'm going to get online and find that out and email it to you.
Okay,
because you know what? I can be persistent. I don't know if you've noticed that.
No, never. Well, so you mentioned our guest, Monique Calm. I came across her when I first started investing in real estate, and I was just really consuming content after content. Monique is the founder of Real Estate Investor Goddesses, which is a kind of an umbrella of a community, of an educational system. She kind of defines herself as an educator and advocate for women to help them create wealth through real estate. She herself is a real estate investor. She's also a syndicator and a developer. She's been doing it over 15 years, and she's invested in anything from multifamily, mobile homes, RVs, flipping, commercial. She even in some industrial work that she's done. I mean, you name it, she's done it. And she said yes when I asked her to come on. So let's bring her on. Well, hey, Monique, how are you?
I'm great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much for coming on. I have been wanting to do this episode with you for a while. You don't know me, but I've known you for a long time. I started investing in real estate about 3 years ago, and I would just consume all of this content, and podcasts were one of them. And I came across your Real Estate Investor Goddesses community, if you will. I signed up for it. There's so much information there. And I thought your mission, I loved it. So, I've been thinking of wanting to do a real estate podcast episode for a while now. And you were the first person I thought of. So
Aw.
before we get into the real estate stuff, let's talk about your backstory. You were an attorney. Talk about
Mhm.
your journey from attorney to real estate mogul.
Well, yeah, I started out as an attorney, partly because, growing up, I was taught that, to be successful, you're going to be a doctor, lawyer, professor, or engineer. I wasn't as into the maths and sciences, so I was like, okay, I guess I'll become a lawyer. So it's kind of a default choice. But I ended up working in a big law firm and was I was pretty miserable as a lawyer, honestly, but I just knew that, and the only thing I'd ever been taught about real estate was to go buy your own home. And so I went to do that after a couple years of practice, and I live in Los Angeles, although I'm in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico right now. So with all of this background noise,
Love
I'm
it.
sorry.
I'm so
It's a
jealous
little
right
like
now.
fiesta here. so, um, and so I went to buy my house, and this was in 2005 in Los Angeles, towards the top of the last bubble. And even 15 years ago, a starter home in a semi-decent neighborhood in LA was upwards of $700,000. And I couldn't do that by myself. But a friend of mine who was in a similar boat suggested that we buy a duplex together. The original idea was that he would live on one side, I'd live on another. We'd find a property with two equal sides. But we ended up finding this old duplex that had a larger downstairs and a two-bedroom upstairs and this converted garage in the back, and we even rented out. So we rented out the upstairs, each took a bedroom in the downstairs, rented out the back house, even rented our basement, and we started a house hack before I knew that was a thing. But I was like, oh my gosh, these people are paying our mortgage. This is great. And there are tax benefits. It was amazing. I still didn't think of it as something that could replace being an attorney, but I became an accidental landlord. And when I met my husband, he had a duplex, and we ended up getting a single family rental together. And when the market crashed in 2008, 2009, we started to flip houses when houses were on sale. And we did that until and then in 2015, we started bringing groups of investors together to purchase larger properties. And that's when we really scaled up and then just, got into apartment buildings. And now we do industrial, like factories. And we have quite a few different properties. We own about 1,300 doors in 9 states now.
That's insane. I'm like so jealous of you right now. That's awesome. Well, let's back up a little bit. Let's talk about your legal career, because what you said, a lot of other guests on the podcast, I think, have repeated, is that they weren't entirely happy in private practice. What were you doing in private practice when you were a practicing lawyer?
I was a corporate litigator. And so long hours, very high stakes deals, but also as an associate in a big law firm, I felt like a little cog in a big wheel. Very, it was like a lot of pressure, but very fungible. And just, trying to feed this machine, the billable hours, and also feeling like I was in this pie eating contest with ethics. Sorry about mixing all these metaphors, but I was in this like pie eating contest where the prize was more pie. And the pie, in my opinion, was like poo pie. It was like disgusting. I didn't like the pie. And I'm like, why am I in this like pie eating contest? I was looking at the partners, and it wasn't like, it was just going to be golf games and fun. It was just like, there was just more of the same that I didn't like. So that was practice for me.
So when you purchased the duplex, you were really looking for a place to live, right? And
Yeah,
maybe to
that was
offset
it.
So was there a light bulb moment where you were like, I am getting out of the rat race and I am going to do real estate full time? Was it a light switch moment? What was that like for you?
I I wish there had been, because it was more that I was kind of like thrown out of the law more so than I chose, even though I was like very, very miserable. Um, there was different levels of misery. So you know, I share this story discovering how miserable I was at first when at one point my appendix ruptured and I found myself in the emergency room. And when the doctor told me that my appendix had ruptured, I'd be in the hospital for several days, ended up being in the hospital for 9 days. And he'd say I had at least 30 days afterwards of recovery. My first thought when he said that was, oh, thank God I don't have to go to work for at least 30 days. I was like, he might have as well told me I won the lottery. Like that's how I was like, oh, that was great. And then I went, oh, that's so bad. I didn't know how unhappy I was until that moment. So I thought it was that firm. And then I ended up leaving. Well, I went to actually Argentina. I became a visiting scholar for a year, and then I came back and I went to another big firm. It's like maybe it was that firm, and then another big firm, which was not as bad as the first firm, but it was still pretty bad. And then I went to a small firm, thinking, okay, the small firm that'll be better because then I'll have more, maybe maybe it's just the big firms are really bad, but the small firm, it was just like, wow, this is as much work for less money. It wasn't much better. But I was, when I was in the small firm, I got married and I was pregnant with my first child. And I probably, and I wasn't really planning on leaving because at that point I was I was a main breadwinner. I was making more than my husband at the time, and with another mouth to feed, I was feeling a sense of responsibility to stay. And when I was about 5.5 months pregnant, my boss called me into his office, and I thought to give me a bonus because I'd been working so hard, but instead he fired me. So, yeah, my mouth dropped just like yours did.
Oh my God.
I was not expecting that. Literally, it was a week after I told him I was pregnant. Anyway, so I was unceremoniously kicked out, and I thought, okay, well, it was literally like the week that my belly came out, and I just looked pregnant. Up until that point, I was like, Dan, why? I don't look pregnant. I just look like I'm getting fat. And then I was like, yay, I look pregnant. And then I was like, no, I look pregnant. How am I going to get another job now? So I just decided to wait until after I gave birth, and I had a short maternity leave, and then I would look for another job. Well, my daughter was born in August of 2008. And within a month, the economy was in free fall. The markets were in free fall. A few months after that, my husband's graphic design business was down 90%. And it was not a good time to find a new job. And it was the real estate that ended up saving us and helping us at that point. And so I was given a gift by my old boss of pushing me out the door at a time when I couldn't get back in, because I probably would have, even though I was very miserable, I might have stayed just because I was lured by the money. And there was golden handcuffs that I thought I needed, but because of what happened, it was not the right time I couldn't find another job. We started to flip houses, and I went, oh, actually this is even more lucrative than doing law, and I actually love it. And then we just sort of, the real estate became this thing, but I hadn't had that light bulb moment, that aha, this could be. It was just, I kept falling into it.
Do you love real estate more than you love law? I mean, I think I know the answer to that. I'll ask
Let
it
me
anyway.
think about that. I really love, I love real estate so much, and I love everything about it. I love finding houses. I love fixing or properties. I'm fixing them up. I love talking to investors. I love, I have a podcast. I've written a book about it. I really love real estate, and I love what it can do for us. And I just, being a lawyer, the hours were so crazy. I felt chained to my desk. I felt like a slave a lot of times. So just a glorified slave. And I love the freedom that I've been able to get with real estate investing. Like right now, like I said, I'm in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. We're here for 2.5 weeks. I have teams doing, managing the real estate and doing all the other stuff, but I have this freedom of movement that, and I bought, not only is there like financial resources, but I have time. So I love it.
I love that. That's such a great story, because I don't know, one, you stumbled onto this concept of financial independence and financial freedom, and then you took it and you just knocked it out of the ballpark. I didn't discover this financial freedom, well, especially in real estate, until I was 45. And I kept saying to myself, I wish I'd been taught this when I was in my 20s. And I just said to my
Yeah.
husband last week that if I had read Rich Dad Poor Dad, Robert Kiyosaki, in my 20s, maybe I wouldn't have the headspace to understand it. But assuming I had the headspace to understand it, I'm not sure I would have gone to law school. I mean, real estate just seems to be such a good avenue if you want to really, value your time and have the ability to do whatever the hell you want to do when you want to do it. And it's power right there
Yeah.
to dictate your life and create your life the way that you want to create it, and not by what your boss wants you to do. Like, that's power.
I am so in awe. I am such an HGTV junkie. Love it or list it. I mean, I watch it. I don't watch the Real Housewives and this and that. That's my HGTV. I'm like, what are they going to find in the house now? How much is that going to cost? Are they going to stay? Are they going to leave? But I love all the transformations that happen. You have my dream job. You are my idol. Will you mentor me? Like, I seriously, I will do anything. I will work for free. Ask Trish. I do this for free. I don't charge anything. But with all that commentary aside, I'm curious. I have so many questions for you. I don't even know where to start. I'm just so excited. I don't know if you can tell, but
I was an HGTV junkie too.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I watch it at the gym all the time. Anyway, so you're thrown into this, which again, thank God that the boss pushed you out. He knew something you didn't, or maybe he didn't, whatever, but the outcome was the right place. I'm sorry you had to go through that. But what did you do to learn? What were the first things that you did? Did you try to find people? Did you try to get books? How did you educate yourself?
Yeah. So one of my big mistakes at the beginning was not educating myself. So you get an education either way. If you get an education at the front end, or you get an education at the back end, and the back end is much more painful. So I made a lot of mistakes because I did not know what I was doing. Although when we started flipping, I got a couple books, and we were sort of looking at the books and looking at HGTV, which is not life, which is it's like reality TV. It's not really real. But so we didn't know what we didn't know. But when I started to do syndication, when we were going to be taking on other people's money, and we had other investors, then I was like, okay, I really need to make sure I know what I'm doing. It's one thing to do stupid things with your own money. It's another thing to do that with other people's money. So we did, we went to trainings, I got mentors, read books, but I was mostly getting mentors and, having people who had done it, knew what they were doing, that I could talk to and ask questions.
You mentioned that you made a lot of mistakes, and I absolutely agree with you that you're going to get an education one way or another. It depends on how much tuition you're going to be paying for it, right? That's what I call lawsuits when we get sued. Well, we're going to learn. But you mentioned all these mistakes you made, which, I mean, I guess the gift you get out of that is now you can teach everybody else what not to do. And
Exactly.
I was curious, from your experience, do you have like a number one mistake, or the worst mistake, or the most common mistake somebody might make when they're trying to get into this field?
Yeah. So I think probably the most common mistake is not being educated, and not really, you don't want to be so educated that, I mean, need to know every single thing so that you don't take action, right? So ultimately you need to take action, and imperfect action is better than no action at all. But not getting some education, I think, is a big mistake. The another big mistake is not having the right team. So real estate is very much of a team sport. It is not something that you do alone. And one of the big mistakes that I made was thinking that it was just about the numbers and that I should go with the cheapest person because, obviously, if I'm just trying to make as much as possible, I should go with the cheapest. And one of the things I learned from my mentors, which I wish I'd known before, was work with the best. They won't cost you money, they'll make you money. And the best is not necessarily most expensive, but the best is the best. And the cheapest is often not the best. And so it can be very expensive to go with the cheapest person because I have had to then go to the good person to fix what the cheap person did. It ends up wasting time and money, and is generally not the wisest thing to do. Or working with people who, with real estate, it's very specialized. So you need to be, if you're an investor and you're looking to buy investment property, and you just go to agent. Most agents, 97%, 98% work with people who are trying to buy a home. And the property you buy for your home is not the same thing almost never as the property that you're going to have as a real estate investment. Unless you do something like I did where you're owner occupied and you're renting it out. But most of the time that's not what people are doing. So they go to look for a rental property, which is the home they would want to live in. And they have team members that are going, oh yes, look at this beautiful granite or quartz countertop, this, right? And you're going, oh yeah, and you fall in love with it because you think, oh, what a beautiful home, but it doesn't make sense as an investment property. So that's the other thing. It's like, trying to focus too much on where you would want to live and what makes sense for you versus what makes sense for the renter. Who's going to be the end user for the property. So you can over improve, or you just buy at the wrong place and do the wrong thing. So those are some of the most common mistakes.
There's so much in there that I think is worth unpacking. One is, do take the time to read. Take the time to educate yourself. There's so much free resources. I know we're going to talk about yours later. You have so many free resources in your community. But there's podcasts, there's books, there's articles. I mean, there's so much stuff. That was my experience too. So maybe I'm biased that I took like 6 months to gobble up everything I could. And then I put it aside. I was like, I got to stop because you do have to eventually move forward.
Yeah.
And you have to take action, even when you don't have all the information. Hopefully you have enough to make a really a wise decision, not a bad investment. But at some point you have to take action. And I love that point. I also want to say that your idea about teams is so important. We just started a renovation project. We bought a triplex that was gutted to the frame, and we've never done something like this before. And I had one of my friends who's an investor give me that exact advice. And he was like, I didn't know who to hire. I had like 5 choices. And he's like, don't go for the cheapest. Maybe the cheapest is good, but don't make that your determining factor. Go for who you think is going to be the better teammate. And I did. And I'm so far loving the process. Like, it's enjoyable, like, to go through this renovation. And I've had personal renovation experiences where it hasn't been enjoyable. So it's worth it. Like, I love that advice is to focus on who you're working with. They're just as important. So that's my commentary on that. But let's talk about the types of real estate investments. That there's so many ways that you can get started. Let's talk about the top 5 or however many top you want to go for, but what you see as, if somebody wanted to invest in real estate tomorrow, what kinds of things could they be looking at?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually wrote a book about this, and it's a guide available as a free download on my website, REIGoddesses.com. It's called Investing in Real Estate from $1 to $1 million, Investing Strategies for Every Budget and Every Goddess. And in there I share 12 different strategies, and they respond to the biggest excuses or blocks that I think a lot of women have from getting even into the game. Okay, so the number one block that women have to getting into real estate, or number one excuse, is that they don't have enough money. They think they don't have enough money, and however much it is, maybe they think they need tons of thousands in the bank, millions, who knows. It's not true. So in my book, I share different strategies that you can start in from zero, you know, a dollar and up. So some of the common ones, one of the easiest ones is to rent out part of the home you actually have on the short-term rental site. So maybe there's a section that could be its own unit or a bedroom. So that is one very easy way to get started, get your money making money without having to spend anything. There are other low-cost ways. There are some online real estate investment trusts that are, you can get in for as little as $100. There are other tax liens. I have one of my tax lien mentor. She got a tax lien once for $1. You can get into real estate at any price point. So that's one of the blocks. Another block that women have is that they think they can't get in because it'll take a lot of time and they're busy, which I get, especially now when many of us who are parents are also having to homeschool in addition to another job. And with all of that we're doing, can feel like, well, where am I going to find the time to go to open houses and get tenants and do that? And so there are ways that you can invest that require very little time. One of the ways is what I do, what I help investors do, which is passively invest in syndications. We as the syndicators, we find the property, we put it together, the team, we bring the groups of investors together, and all the passive investors need to do is send their funds in and wait for it to come back with friends. So there are other pretty passive ways to do a turnkey investing, where it won't take very much time, but you are in the game and you can take advantage of the many benefits of real estate investing. And the last, the number 3 excuse that, or block, that women have is that they love the idea of the passive income from real estate. They love the idea of that freedom that it could give, but they don't want to be a landlord. They do not want to have to get a 3 a.m. call about a toilet. They don't want to ever have to evict anyone. They don't want to, they don't want to have to deal with that. And they're like, well, I would do real estate, but I don't want to be a landlord. And there are ways of doing real estate where you do not have to be a landlord. So you don't have to deal with what I call the 3 T's: tenants, toilets, termites. And so I share different strategies where you don't have to do that. One is the syndication that I was just talking about. As a passive investor, you're not dealing with any of that stuff. But there are, there's tax liens and note investing and other things where you can invest in real estate where you don't have to deal with the tenants. So, however, what you should do to get into real estate will depend on what your resources are starting out. And so if you don't have a lot of money, but maybe you have time, you're going to be doing something different than somebody who has no time, but maybe has some money sitting there. So what are your resources? What are your end goals? Where do you really want to end up? And because some people want to invest in real estate for the passive income. Some people want to invest in real estate for long-term retirement income. Some people want to invest in real estate just for the tax benefits, because real estate is this wonderful thing where a lot of times, even though you're making money, for tax purposes, it looks like you've lost money. So you have a loss. And so a lot of people who have a lot of income and they're going to be taxed a lot. Like one of my friends who is a very successful businessman, he found himself owing $500,000 to the IRS one year. And he'd always been taught, like most of us, many of us, that the more you make, the more you pay in taxes, right? That's how the system is supposed to work, right? except not with real estate. So he learned about that. He bought an apartment building in Memphis, Tennessee. His apartment building was making money, but because of the way the tax laws are, even though he was making six figures on the apartment building, his tax bill went from $500,000 to the IRS to zero. So not only did he make the money on the building, but he saved $500,000 that would otherwise have gone to Uncle Sam. But a lot of people get into real estate because of the tax benefits. So depending on what your outcome is, then and then lastly, how you want to play. So maybe you love, like you were saying, Talar, that you love like HGTV and the idea of taking some place and taking an ugly duckling and making it beautiful. That's one way of investing. That can be really fun and very hands-on. And other people will be like, no, I don't want to ever have to do anything like that. And I just want to like have my money make me money and never like even touch a hammer or think about a hammer or ever like see a tenant or anything. So depending on how you want to play in the game, it's going to determine how you invest.
And that's such a good exercise, I think, is to really sit down and figure out where are you in the time money scale, right? That's beautiful, because if you are, like you said, if you have a ton of time and very little money, then you can give your time to a project. And what's great is if you can find somebody who's the opposite of you, partner with them, you make a nice, beautiful, complete picture, and you can invest with somebody with their money, which is, not exactly what you do, or a very simplified version of what you do when you talk about syndication, which is you find the property, you create this investor pool. So people give you money and you make them money, like you invest it for them essentially in this property. Yeah. And I think that's such an interesting exercise to do, is to really ask yourself where you fall on that scale, because you're right. Real estate can really truly be passive, really 100%. You just, here's my money, just send me a check every month. Or it could be where you're, swinging a hammer and unclogging toilets, like it, and anything in between. And but it's such a great area for people with professional jobs to get into. It's a beautiful side hustle that if you love it, you could maybe turn it into not so much of a side hustle, but even just to get started. So I love all that. You have developed, so you've been doing this since 2008, right? So
I got my first investment in 2005, and I became a full-time investor 2009, 2010.
So it's been over a decade for you. And in that decade, you've really created a mission for yourself. Can you talk about what that is and what your mission is in the context of real estate?
Sure. So this really started when I got into syndication. I remember going to my first syndication seminar to learn how to do it, and one of the speakers was talking about, when you're going to syndicate, you want to build your brand, build your network, think about who do you want to work with. And it was the day after the conference, and I was at the hotel gym that morning, and I'm on the elliptical and just processing the weekend. And I was thinking about, who do I want to work with? Build your brand, build your network. And I started thinking about that room. There had been about 120 people there. Maybe 8 were women, and 2 of them were working in the back. So it was very few women, way less than 10%. And it came as this divine download that bring women into this room. And, I want to work with women. And Real Estate Investor Goddesses, it came to me then, not the how of it, but the idea of bringing women to this room, and my mission to help 1 million women create financial freedom through real estate investing. And financial freedom, I define as having enough passive income streams that it equals to or exceeds your expenses. So once your expenses are met by your passive income, at that point, I feel like you're working because you want to, not because you have to. And I particularly am focused on women because I truly believe that when women have more time and money, which is what real estate and passive income can give you, they they give back. They give back to their families, they give back to their communities, they give back to the world. And the world needs us now more than ever to be able to give our gifts and to help, to do what I believe we were all born to do. And I focus on women because I know a woman, when she has more, and she brings her kids, her men, her besties, her mamas, her sisters, her cousins, all her neighbors, right? So that's my shortcut for helping the world, is helping women. Because one empowered woman empowers everyone around her.
I love that. I was raised by a single mom who had zero education. I think she had 1 year of college, but she went to college to find a husband. That's what they
Wow.
did. And when she got married and found herself divorced 5-6 years later, she had no way of really making income. So my entire life, she worked because she had to. And this mission of financial freedom is so important just because I feel it deeply, because I don't want women to go through what my mom went through. If she'd had that passive stream coming in, her emotional and mental well-being, I think, probably would have been way better.
Yeah.
I love that mission. Talk about some of the women, their reactions to you, because you've been doing this for a while now. You have a whole community of women in your face. You have, well, let me back up. Let's talk about your community first. You have a Facebook group, right? What else do you have going on under the umbrella of Real Estate Goddesses?
Yeah, so we have a Facebook group. We have an email list. I send out usually weekly emails with resources, information, inspiration. I have a mentorship and a community educational programs, and our investor club. So for women who want access to passive investing opportunities. So I have a lot of different ways, and my podcast. So a lot of different ways to support women and to, on this mission to get them towards financial freedom. And the women that come into my community, it's a very varied group. So we have, I think I've had goddesses as young as 18 and as old as 82.
Love it. 82.
Yeah, I've had a few grandmas that are part of our group. Mostly they're, I think on average, they're mid-career professional women that are looking to get more financial security and ultimately financial freedom. And they're attracted to this mission because my events, we have a mantra: I am here to be financially free and to bring others along with me. And so we're trying to improve our lives so we can reach back and help others. And so I tend to attract women that are part of that feel that, and also that are in agreement with our culture. So for the women that join our program, our education mentorship program, they all have to agree that, as part of our culture, we have a sisterhood. So it's a non-judgmental, non-catty, non-competitive sisterhood, that's a safe place where we can be vulnerable, where we cheer each other on, where we love on each other, where we may partner together, we build each other up, and where we can be safe and feel vulnerable. And we have women, all backgrounds, all, like I said, variety of ages, racial, religious, sexual orientation backgrounds. One thing we have in common is that we agree that we are sisters, and we feel that we are goddesses. So that's it. That's our community, and it's an incredible one.
So tell me some of the reactions that you get from people in the community, because I know that you've helped a lot of women reach that financial freedom goal. What kind of feedback have you gotten?
The feedback that I get, a lot of it, and it's not me that does the work. I mean, they've come and they show up and they do the work, but they're grateful to have found this community, to have this sisterhood, to feel supported, to feel like they're not alone in this, to feel they feel just safe and safer and held, and like that there's this community of women that have their back. And it's incredible. When when they start, they get their first deals, or they get, they're in the game and they start to create financial freedom. And I had one goddess that I was speaking to. So we have a year-long program, and at the end we have a results call. And I was talking to one goddess who she was at an event that I did last year and signed up for the program. And she said before she came, and she came to this REI Goddesses event. She was invited by a friend from the kayaking community, and she actually thought it was REI, like the sporting goods stores. She wasn't even thinking anything about real estate investing, but she's like, when she looked at the the link finally, like the week before she was going, she was like, "Oh, I thought we were going to be kayaking," but so she's like, "Well, I love this friend. Let's go anyway." So she went and said, "Okay." This was something that she thought maybe someday in the future she would do, but she got excited and saw the possibilities, so she joined. And in this past year, she was just telling me she got 5 deals, and she also got pregnant, and she's due later this month. And she says when she goes on maternity leave, she no longer has to go back to work because she has enough passive income that she is now financially free. So yes, so
That is
excited.
phenomenal.
It is amazing. So that's what I live for. And yeah, so she feels super empowered, and now she feels like I have the time. And like you were saying, your poor mom was, Tertia, she was so like busy and probably overwhelmed, like feeling like, how am I going to feed my kid and survive? And now the student Jamie, she's like, now I have the time to be the mother I want to be. And I'm I'm doing real estate in a way that I feel like I'm able to help people. So she's really excited about real estate journey that she's on, and how empowering that is, but also now that she can be with her first child, the mom she wants to be, because she doesn't have to work.
And that's huge. What a huge impact, because Talar and I share the same life coach. This is like a little analogy, little segue. We share the same life coach, so she can appreciate this. But since working with her, my work with her has let me be a better parent. Like, it's let me to show up for my daughter in ways I never would have done before. And I kind of liken your story to that. It's giving people the tools to create that life that they want, which just tenfold pays it forward to other things, like to be able to have money not stress you out. Yeah. And not be something that's at the forefront of your brain all the time, or worried about where your next paycheck's going to be, or if I were to lose my job, what would I do for money? That ability to take that off of somebody's plate. And I know they do all the work. I get that. Like, I do when I have my go through my coaching, I do a lot of the work, but yeah. I so appreciate my coach for giving me the tools to do that. So I think that's fantastic. Let's talk about let's go back to the side hustle for a second. So were you always somebody who thought that it was important to have a side hustle, or was that something you stumbled into through your real estate stuff?
Yeah, I stumbled into it. It was hard to have a side hustle when I was working like 16, 18 hours as an attorney. So I never thought I needed a side hustle. I never was taught the importance of getting multiple income stream. I was never taught about I was just taught you get a job, best job you can, you work till you're 65, you get the gold watch, you play golf for a few years and you die. Like, that was it. And so no, I never thought about side hustles. I didn't. I just felt, as I got on this journey, I discovered I did, and I also went on a journey around money, because when I was invited to leave my last law job, I actually became a coach, and I was working with I started working with lawyers who wanted to be non-lawyers initially, and then it morphed into women around abundance. So money and abundance. That's this abundance coach for women. I think that's why when Real Estate Investor Goddesses was born, is this marriage of all these things that I had done. It's like the real estate plus the abundance coaching. So in my programs, in my mentorship, we do a lot of focus on that psychological part. Tony Robbins says success is 20% strategy, 80% psychology. So we focus a lot on that because it does. Yeah, if you're too scared or too worried or too in your head with all these stories to take action, then you never do anything.
It's so funny that you say that you were a coach, because I was going to tell you earlier, oh my gosh, you sound like a coach. Do you do any coaching? Because I want to hire you. And then my other question was, how many women are in the group? And then do you have a limit on the number of women in the group? And then what if there's a man who wants to be a part of it? Where do you send him?
Yeah. Okay, I'll do that last question first, because yes, I do get the occasional man that like, I really love what you're doing, or when I watched your how to get started training online, would you work with men? And I go, I so love and appreciate men, and I'm so grateful that you have reached out, but no, I don't work with men. We do have male investors that join our syndications that are passive investors, and so I send them, any men interested, to vip-assets.com, which is our investment website, and they'll, normally we'll talk to a member of my team. Generally they'll talk to my husband. I actually work with my husband, so I love men. And we also do a real estate investor soulmates retreat, so that's for couples investing together. But for the most part, no, my focus is just on women, and I tell them very lovingly, like, what are you interested in? I can definitely recommend somebody else, but I have most programs are 90% men. They're going to go and they're going to feel very comfortable there. What we talk about is, how do you invest as a woman? All right. So we're really focused not just on, it's a group of women investing, but how do you invest in the feminine paradigm, which is different. Women are not smaller, less hairy men. We're really, we have different chromosomally, we're different. We have different ways of, our brain construction is different. And so what works for us as women, which is something we're not often taught in our culture. We're often taught a patriarchal model for working and for showing up, which drains us, and I think leads to an epidemic amongst women of depression, of rage, of trying to self-medicate with shopping or or alcohol or whatever, because we're not taught how to show up in the feminine. It was actually a very powerful way to show up if you're in this like a very centered feminine place. So that's what we're talking about. So it's not a good place for men, generally speaking. So I lovingly say thank you. So grateful that you've reached out, but no. And then with regards to, I think you asked how many people we have we have about 20,000 on our email list, in our private Facebook community. I think we're rounding 3,500 women that are part of that community, and from 20 countries now, which is really exciting. Wow. And in our mentorship group, we're close to 100 women.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And then our mastermind, we max out at 25.
You've mentioned just a couple of times investing in tax liens. Can you explain what that is?
Yeah. So, and tax liens are, they say when you have everyone who owns property has to pay property taxes to municipality. When they do not pay it, then the municipality will put a lien on the property, and that's called a tax lien. But they state the county or whatever the municipality is, they rely on that tax dollars. So they need to get the taxes. So they incentivize investors to come in and buy purchase those liens at a rate of return, and in order to bring in that money now and to help the government. And the government is then, and you could have, I have a couple of tax liens in Florida. They're making 18%, and the government is in charge of. They're going to go and be the debt collector for me. So they're going to get it from the property owner. So tax lien investing, there are a couple of, every municipality that they all have their own law, their own rules about how they do it. So some you have the lien and they're paying you an interest, and when it redeems, you get back your principal plus the interest. Other times people will invest in tax liens because they want to end up with the property. If the owner doesn't pay the lien, then the lien holder can end up with the property. And the tax liens, called bully liens, they'll go even before a mortgage. So the mortgage gets wiped out, and then the lien holder will get that property if that's how they want to invest. It is it's a really fascinating area of real estate. It does require lots of due diligence to make sure you're buying what you think you're buying. and we offer at Real Estate Investor Classes an online class to learn how to do that if anyone's interested in that. But it is a strategy for investing that you can do from anywhere. So you can do it remotely, and a lot of the auctions are online. So you can do that, do your due diligence, and then buy them, and they're at all different price points too. So
it just goes to show there are so many ways that you can invest in real estate. And I love that. It's what turns you on. Like, what do you gravitate toward? And then, because you're going to stick with something you love to do, you'll sustain something that you love to do. If you don't love it, you'll be in and out of there quicker, and it really won't make sense to do it. So I think that's phenomenal. What do you say to, like you said, buy where you live, or what was it? Buy where you live, but invest
live where you want to live, invest where the numbers make sense.
So I knew I would butcher your phrase, but what do you say to the people that are nervous to invest either in another state that's far away or an area that they don't know very well? What do you say to those people?
Yeah. It's true. It is very important that you or somebody very, very trusted on your team has a familiarity with the market, because that people can make mistakes by just thinking, oh yeah, Dallas is a good market, let me just buy anywhere. And they can end up buying in a very bad part of town and then buy incorrectly, right? Or they don't have sufficient eyes on the ground. So it is something that it's important that people really educate themselves on, make sure they have a great team to support them in investing out of state, and to do it in a way that makes sense. So there are a lot of different ways of investing in real estate, but there are many, many people, many of my goddesses are very successfully investing out of state. And actually almost all of my investments are outside of California. We did get one factory in California this year, but for the most part, we do not invest in California. So it's very doable to do. You just want to make sure that you have the right team and you know what you're doing before you go that route.
Who do you think is the first team member that the type of person they should add to your team? Who's the most valuable first person that people should look for?
Other than the mentor, your teacher, so you learn what you have to do. It depends on how you're investing. So if you are a tax lien investor, it's going to be very different. You're going to need a different team than if you are buying you're doing single family rentals, which will be different than if you're doing industrial. So most people will probably be doing single family or small multifamily. rentals. That's what most people do. So small multifamily up to 4 units, which falls under residential. And so in terms of the team member, again, it depends on where you're investing. But let's say you're buying a 1 to 4 unit in your town, someplace that you where you are. If you need to figure out, are you going to self-manage? Then you might want to or if not, then you're not self-managing. You'd want a property manager. You'd want a good broker or agent who really understands that market and understands what an investor needs. You'd want a lender, depending on how you are going to purchase the property. So those are probably the ones that you'd start with.
Do you think you need to have all of them lined up before? I mean, maybe the lender you probably need, but do you need them all lined up before you start investing, or can you accumulate it as you go?
You don't need them all lined up before. And one of the good things is once you find a really great one, I think A players work with other A players. So you might have a great property manager, and they are going to then say, okay, we have this great construction, contractor, and then there's a great or the broker has a lender, and so they can guide you to other team members.
I love that. That's been our experience too, is we found a very investor friendly real estate agent, and he was really the first member of our team, if you will, that was a resource for us beyond just getting us properties, but here's a contractor, here's a lender, here's another lender, here's what's hot, here's what's developing in this area, because we invest like an hour and a half away from us. So it really is, you can think of them beyond just finding your particular investment. You can think of them as a resource for you as you learn. I know he's been a huge resource for us. My husband and I were just talking about that. Thank God for Brian, because we would be like, we wouldn't have had all the lenders that we've had. It has been because of him. Like, a lot of our strategy has been developed by talking to him. But the key was he was an investor friendly real estate agent. He wasn't just somebody who sold single family homes. That's what he does, but he understood the mind of an investor. And I think that's really key. So I love that. So I know we have to start to wrap up. Just a couple final questions. What are some resources? Let's start with books. What are some of the books that you would recommend people start besides your own? We'll plug yours at the end. Obviously, they need to read your books. But besides your own, what have you found to be most useful for newbie investors?
Yeah. So I found the ABCs of real estate investing really helpful. I think Rich Dad, Poor Dad tends to be a good one to help people get the right paradigm for investing. And then there are other ones that are asset class specific, depending on what you want to invest in, then you would look at. But I think those two are good ones to start it.
What about podcasts? Are you a podcast listener?
It's funny. I have a podcast. I don't listen to podcasts. I've been on so many, and they're like, don't listen really. But I find that if you have an hour and a half, Bigger Pockets is a really valuable one. They go really deep, and that's a great one for investing. Real estate investor gossips. You want to hear like stories of women investing in real estate? Very inspiring, I think. And there are a lot of really great podcasts, and that's just right. But I think not Bigger Pockets. If you have the hour and a half to invest in one, I think that's a great place to start.
That's where I started too. There was a lot that I got there, and I can't remember. You've been on a couple of podcasts. I can't remember where I heard you now, though.
I was on Bigger Pockets.
Yeah.
I have been on that one.
Yeah. Were you on Michael Blank's one as well?
I was, yes.
That's where I remember, because he's a big syndicator. So
yes. Yeah. For people who are interested in apartments, investing, Michael Blank's podcast is great.
That's awesome. Well, tell everybody here where they can find you.
The best place to find me is reigoddesses.com, and there you can find our podcast, our investor club, connect to our Facebook community, just the blog, get that free download. So all of that is at reigoddesses.com. I'm also at reigoddesses on socials. You can find on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter to a lesser extent, and on LinkedIn also to a lesser extent. But I am not. I have a social media team now, thank you God, because I do not love social media, but it's important to be there. But we are there. Real Estate Investor Goddesses has a presence, so you can find us there.
That's awesome. Well, Monique,
Yeah.
I really appreciate your time today. I think what you're doing is really special. You're really providing a service and helping so many women out. And the goal of financial freedom is a personal one for me, so I get it. And it's like you're educating people on how important it is and what it can do for you. And I think that's just brilliant. So thank you so much for coming on. Make sure you check out Monique on all the social media channels that she mentioned and her podcast, website, books, etc. And thank you for tuning in. Make sure you give us that rating, that like, that review, that subscribe button on whatever platform that you're listening. But we appreciate the listen. Make sure you tune in next time for another episode of The Defense Never Rests. We will see you then.